I just finished The Dream Builders. It was so good. Like I literally just finished it today and I was so excited to talk about it. Let me start drawing. Last video, I forgot to record my screen for like 4 full minutes. Yeah, so The Dream Builders, set in India, which I've been really into learning more about since I have family from there and stuff. And there's a lot of, I don't know if it's because I had started reading Burnt Sugar, but I've been getting a lot more recommendations from, Indian authors. So at first I was not sure if I was in the mood for it because similar to Burnt Sugar, it was also from the little bit I read about the book, because you guys know I don't like to read the back of a book because sometimes it really spoils things. But it seemed like it was another book about, a woman coming to terms with who her mother is. And I just am like, okay, like I already know that my mom is a person. I don't need a whole book about someone else realizing that. But I took a chance anyway because I just, something about it, like the title, and I can't remember if it had one of those stickers that shows that it's won an award or not, but I found myself deciding to just read it anyway. And it does also do something that I like in books where it's switching perspectives or switching like who it's following. Kind of like, I always think of Skins when I read stories like that. Like, do you remember the British Skins where every episode is about like a different friend in the group, and it's like you think, I don't want to watch an episode about this person, he's an asshole, and then by the end of the episode you're like, oh, I understand him now, I like him. So this book did that too, where it starts you off with Manika. She's the first character that you meet, and so I didn't know that it was going to give me a different person every chapter, and I thought, okay, here's the main girl, here's like the person I'm going to be following. And so obviously I'm reading everything biased towards her because I'm thinking this is who the author wants us to identify with. But then it kind of switches in the next chapter to who you think it's like the mean girl. Like, not that they're in high school, but anyway, I'm getting way too into the details. But basically Manika's coming back to India because her mother has died, and she's reconnecting with some people, the first being one of the like more popular girls from high school who she didn't have like a close friendship with in high school, but wants to connect with her now that they're adults. And so you're skeptical of this popular girl's motivations, and from Manika's point of view, you're feeling like distrustful, but then it switches to the mean girl's perspective the very next chapter. So then right away I'm like, oh, so we're going to be meeting and empathizing with everyone, not just Manika. And then I really liked it because there was one point where I like started to really dislike Manika because you're seeing her from other people's point of views. And I really like that because it makes you think about real world relationships and how it's like, why don't people like her? Like, I think she's great. And it's because everyone has such a different point of view, duh. And then there was one point that I really liked where they're talking about, what is her name? Ramona. She's the like popular one, and a few characters are saying like Ramona's never been mean to anyone. She's never unpleasant. She's never had a mean thing to say about someone. But then you're looking at the way Ramona's perceived by people who aren't her equals. Like because like the class system is so different in India, and you see that she really is like very mean to people who she perceives as lesser than her, but it's not like outright. Like, she doesn't yell at them like other people do. She doesn't, snap at them. But the thing is, she doesn't treat them like people at all. Like, one guy said, like, she never looks at me. I always feel uncomfortable. Like, she never asks about me. She just comes in, says what she needs, and leaves. Like, she's just giving orders. Like, there's one point where she's trying to get him to give her a ride because he's their driver, and he tells her, I was just in a car accident. And she's like, can you please just take me? And doesn't even ask if he's okay or anything. So, like, of course, he's perceiving her as this, like, total princess who doesn't even seem as a person. Meanwhile, like her friends and other people who are in her same social class are like, no, she's really sweet. Like she may not be the brightest, but she's not a mean person. So it was a really interesting look at like the class system in India, and even like reading about the weather in India. Like it talks a lot about how it feels. Like you really are getting, it's such an immersive experience reading this book. And then it was also interesting, I think this was written around, it was definitely when Trump was president, because they reference that a lot. So you're seeing like the Indian perspective of Americans' reaction to Trump, which was so interesting because Manika is coming back to visit from America. So she's very like, that's not my president. Like, I don't agree. I would never be seen. Like, because in this book, there's a Trump Towers being built in the city that they're in. And everyone in the city is like, hell yeah, there's this great new building that's going up. Like, this is going to be great for our economy. It's going to put our city on the map. It's going to create jobs. But then from the American perspective, it's like, ew, we hate this guy. But then the Indians are looking at her like, well, you're so lucky you have the privilege to hate him. Like, we just need anyone who can bring, who can create jobs, because another aspect of the plot was that lots of other builders were trying to create property but couldn't get, like, licenses weren't getting approved. There was a lot of corruption, bribery, things like that. So that was really interesting. And there was also, what I liked was the discussion about obsession with owning property, because I'm not someone who's very passionate about having to own a home. Like, that's not like something I'm rushing to, but it's such a cultural thing in America. And they talk about it in the book, how it feels. I don't live in India, so I can't say if this is accurate or if this is just for the sake of the plot, but I'm assuming it is, that same kind of sentiment is growing, at least in the city that they were in, where there is this drive to show that you're successful by owning property, and that it's really shifting the priorities and culture there. So that was really interesting. And it seemed like the implication of the book was that it was unique to the city, not the country as a whole, but I still thought it was interesting seeing, you don't hear a lot of people say that they don't care about property ownership. So it was like kind of a refreshing perspective. I liked all of the characters. I usually don't love when there's more than like 3 characters that I have to get to know, but I think there might have been 12. I could be wrong, but it got to a point where I was excited. Like, each chapter is a different person, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, I didn't think I was going to get this person's perspective. Like, what is this going to be? It'll be someone that's like, just like a random driver, and you're like, and then you get his whole life and like his troubles and his worries, and then there's like ways that they all connect to each other, of course, not necessarily like person to person, but maybe this person's wife goes to see that person's mom, and then that person's son is with that person's servant. Like, it just felt really satisfying because it doesn't always tell you like, this is someone you've met before. You just realize it. And so that was fun, like putting 2 and 2 together. And I like when things aren't just handed to you. Like, it's nice when a plot isn't spoon-fed and you get to discover things. So really recommend this one. This was also an audiobook. It was just over 13 hours. I got through it really fast, like, obviously, but, I'm not going to say, when I say that, it's like, I'm not sitting for 13 hours listening all at once, but I was listening to this book, like, every quiet moment I had, because I quickly got very into it. Like, almost instantly, I was very absorbed in what was happening. Like, the writing just makes you totally sympathize with everything that each person's going through, which is such an achievement because sometimes they're at odds with each other. So it's like, first you're sympathizing with the neglected wife, and then you find yourself sympathizing with her supposedly inattentive husband. Like, that's just like the most typical, very soapy example, but still, it got me. I really liked it. I definitely recommend, I recommend all of these. I guess that's why I even make videos about them, but I really liked it. Like, I want other people to read these books so we can talk about them, but yeah, I enjoyed it. Yeah, that's it.